I see where it says meeting is now streaming live on Facebook.
Okay, so we are live now.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Jacqueline Boone Alsop, and I'm the president of the Anne Arundel County branch of the NAACP. Welcome to all who have tuned in on Facebook and Zoom for this virtual town hall meeting on the impact of COVID-19 on our educational system. Thousands have participated in virtual town halls over the past few weeks, joining to hear from experts and learn on how we can fight to ensure that our underserved communities are not left behind as America deals with COVID-19 pandemic. This virus has caused us to make major changes in our lives, and it impacts all of us. We have invited leaders from the Anne Arundel County's educational system to share information with us, and I thank them for agreeing to share with the community major changes on how they will proceed going forward. Our moderator for the evening will be Latika Hicks, NAACP Educational Chair. The partnership sponsors of this evening's virtual town hall are the Caucus of African American Leaders, the United Black Clergy, Connecting the Dots, March on Maryland, and hosted by the Anne Arundel County branch of the NAACP. And you will hear from each of these groups at the end of this meeting. Now I will ask Monique Brown, Education Committee member and host, to explain the technical process of this meeting. Monique?
Thank you, President Osip. Good evening, everyone. My name is Monique Brown, and I am the Assistant Secretary for the Anne Arundel County branch of the NAACP. I would like to say thank you to everyone that is participating and to our panelists for taking the time out to be here. We know that with this COVID-19 crisis, everyone is busy, so we really appreciate you all joining us this evening. Before we begin, I would like to just give a quick technical overview of how our Zoom meeting will proceed. For the majority of the meeting, everyone will be muted with the exception of those people who are co-hosting. And the reason for this is because we would just like to ensure that the audience can hear the moderator and the panelists as they are asking and answering questions respectively. And we also would like to ensure that we're reducing any ambient noise as much as possible and also minimizing any distractions. So for this meeting, you will not be able to unmute yourselves, but we will make sure that when it's the speaker's turn to talk, that they will be unmuted. We will be monitoring questions on Facebook, and we also understand that those people who are participating via Zoom, we understand that you all may want to ask questions as well. If that is the case, we do ask that you place those questions in our Zoom chat. We have someone who will be monitoring those questions as well. And with that said, I will turn it over to Ms. Hicks.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Latika Hicks. I'm the Education Chairperson for the Anne Arundel County NAACP, and I'm pleased to be your moderator tonight. On our panel today, we have Dr. Arlotto, Superintendent of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, Dr. Lindsay, President of Anne Arundel County Community College, and Michelle Corkadel, President of the Anne Arundel County School Board. Thank you all for being here. Each presenter on our panel will have 5 minutes for their opening remarks. My colleague, Monique Brown, will serve as the timekeeper. A soft bell will indicate when their time is up. Following the opening remarks, we will immediately go into the question and answer period, where panelists will respond to questions from our sponsors and our viewing audience on Facebook and Zoom. Any questions not addressed during this town hall can be submitted by email to townhall@annearundelcountynaacp.org. Panelists, I will ask that you please be clear, complete, and concise as possible when answering these questions. We want to provide as much information as we can in the time that we have. With that said, we will begin the opening remarks with Dr. Arlotto. Dr. Arlotto?
I'm not getting to him. There it is.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and opportunity to meet with you all this evening. This is wonderful. I'm incredibly proud of the work our staff across all departments. There's been a real sense of togetherness and collaboration during these incredibly difficult times. Likewise, I'm very appreciative of our families and students, their flexibility, their patience, and their grace as they've all had to alter their lives and enter into this online instructional adventure. We in the pre-K to 12 educational realm have most of our work predicated on having students inside classrooms and interacting with their teachers, including all of our student support services. The online educational environment is completely different in that way, as you know. Students are forced to be more independent learners, utilizing a variety of resources to support that learning. We're all learning a lot, and I believe we will be a stronger school system as a result. As we have adapted to this new normal, all of us, have had to readjust our lenses. We've been forced to change our behaviors and our schedules and to think about instruction and all that comes with it in ways which are foreign to us. The approach across our system has been to employ a mindset of equity, grace, patience, and flexibility. We have families and employees in a variety of situations and circumstances today. Families where both parents work and children can't get help on instruction until evenings or weekends. Teachers who are creating lessons for students while working with their own children at home. Students who may not have access to all the available resources. We owe it to all of them to meet them where they are and help them adapt and adjust as best we can. When it comes to technology, our primary focus has been to help students and staff without devices. More than 700 laptops have been distributed to staff and over 10,000 Chromebooks have been distributed to our students. The focus first on the Chromebook distribution was to families with no devices and our high school seniors. Families who still need Chromebooks should contact their principal. We have Chromebooks available and are delighted to distribute those and will continue to do so. We want every child engaged to the greatest extent possible. We recognize that will vary from child to child, and we do not expect children to sit in front of a screen for 6 hours a day. In addition to technology, we have provided more than 750,000 meals to children since March 16th, nearly tripling the number of students served between the first day and today. All that said, we can't be everything to everybody. There are a great many variables that are out of our control. We have appreciated the incredible help from our community partners because this is our battle, all of us. And I thank you for focusing on our children and most importantly, focusing on our individual and collective health and safety during these very, very difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lindsay, your opening remarks, please.
Thank you. I too would like to thank you for the invitation. This is a wonderful opportunity to inform the community as to what Arundel Community College is doing. And I echo a lot of what George has already said. Very, very proud of our employees, proud of our students. This has been a tremendous collaborative effort. We ended up taking all of our classes as well as our online, all of our support programs online, which was a big move for a lot of our faculty and staff. Some who have been, teaching face-to-face who have not been as familiar with the online platform. We took spring break and the week thereafter to bring our faculty in and train them, people that had not done online performances before and online teaching before. And then the week after that, they were able to work with colleagues who were like faculty mentors. So We have faculty teaching, faculty, staff teaching, staff. Came back on April the 6th for their instruction. We were fully online with all of our support programs and our courses operating in that direction. I too share that we take the top 100% of our applicants. I always share that perspective because we are open enrolled. So we have a lot of adult students who are having issues with the K-12 system, students at our school who are parents who are trying to work as well as teach their children. And George, we have tremendous respect for the work that the K-12 system is doing in preparation. It's very different when you're in the role of teacher at that level and with those skill sets that are needed. We also have students who are homeless. We have students who are in need of food. We've been working with our students to actually deliver food packages to them directly for the people that are having struggle in that direction. We've done very similar things. I think a lot of the colleges and K-12s are doing the purchasing of laptops for the students that don't have access to laptops. And even more. And we also have a priority look at people who really need the assistance, possibly greater than others. It's been an exciting time for us, a lot of changes. It's been an experience, I think, that has brought our college closer together, actually. In this difficult time, everybody's working together because suddenly you realize what the real priorities are from an educational and a life perspective. So I'm happy to share, and I look forward to sharing some of the programs that we've done and some of the questions that I have already seen to provide some answers to. And again, thank you, Jackie, for your presentation. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Corkadel, your opening remarks.
Very much. I want to first thank everyone. As we struggle just to get through our day, having everyone take the time and do all the planning for this is amazing to me. And this is one of hopefully many conversations that we'll be able to have with the community moving forward. So thank you, Latika. Thank you, Monique. Thank you, President Alsop, and all the others who I know are a strong team behind everyone. Truly, the impact of this crisis has had a very profound impact on how we view our world, our country, our state, and our community. I think that goes without saying, but it's nonetheless still necessary. Why? Because we now have decisions to make, and we need to make those decisions together. We have a staff and Dr. Arlotto's team that has gone above and beyond. We have seen our food service reach the top level, I think, at our state and possibly in our region, because it started from the heart. It started from the moments before COVID, where equity and a passion to make sure that our students receive the best, no matter what it is that we're doing for them in the education arena. And so that I'm very proud of has translated into performance that has gone above and beyond. Dr. Arlotto, I know him and his team are very happy to quietly work their 7 days, 24 hours a day weeks, jumping in and out of these calls with Dr. Lindsay and the like. But I think it's important and notable as an introduction that the passion for our students is most certainly there. Dr. Arlotto talked about our patience, our grace, and our flexibility during these trying times. And equity amidst a crisis is not something I think our toolkits, our little toolkits and our training necessarily covers, as does board governance on a day-to-day basis or what our superintendents plan to face. But when the crisis comes, this is when true leadership is necessary. We must rely on those core tools, even in these trying moments. And I have seen our staff, our teachers, and our students rise to that occasion, express themselves very well, and not settle for anything less. And I don't think we have to during a crisis, but we definitely have to think of things very differently. And so as we move forward with our questions and our sharing of information, we need to understand that although transparency may look different in our new platforms of virtual town halls and virtual meetings, that it is important that we still provide it whenever and however possible. And that rings very true with equity as well. How we do that and perhaps the criteria that we use needs to adapt to the current situation. But I am very confident in the resiliency of everyone that's involved and our leadership. Leadership is something that I think now more than ever, the average person is seeking, and we are now all tested, each and every single one of us. We're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but I know that working together in our heart, we can do that. Because at the end of the day, we cannot make the uncertainty, the disappointment, and the anxiety go away. But we know that we are here each and every single day, and it's important that people recognize that we are here to support our students and families along the way, no matter what this pandemic is going to throw in our path. And so our decisions may need to change and our flexibility may need to remain, and we will need to recognize true grace when our differences of opinion emerge. And the disappointment and anxiety will continue among our residents. And that is what our leadership is all about. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from our constituents tonight, to hearing the questions, and the questions that I can't answer, I commit to making sure that we get the answers and that we find as many solutions as possible amidst this crisis. Thank you guys so much once again, and I'm looking forward to our next part of the agenda. Latika, back to you.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our questions. First up is Dr. Arlotto. Dr. Arlotto. All right, first question. Approximately 2 weeks ago, it was reported from your office that about 10% of students had not yet connected with their teachers through e-learning. Could you update us on the progress of getting all of the students connected? And also, could you give us some sense of where those students are in terms of the grade level and their location within the county?
Sure. So this has been an important endeavor for us. And it's been an all hands on deck, meaning we have lots of folks in the school system that are not in buildings. And so secretaries and PPWs and counselors and principals and assistant principals, and we've been utilizing all those folks to reach out to students and families to find out why they haven't connected. And so if they have not logged in through their class link, if they've not logged into their virtual classroom, the Google Classroom, or connected with their teacher, that's for us obviously an indication that they are not engaged in the e-learning. So again, it's been this all hands on deck to try and locate the students. So we were several weeks ago at about 10% of our students that had not connected. And that's so 10% for us is about 8,500 students. There were a few more than that, but let's just say for conversation's sake around 10%. And so that, I'm sorry, and so that's quite a few, well, that sounds great, 90% engaged, but 10% for us is close to 9,000 students. So as of this afternoon, our principals have been keeping track. So as teachers are coming across students on their class rosters that have not engaged, that information is going to the school counselor, it's going to the school PPW, it's going to the school administration, and then we are again the all hands on deck trying to reach out to students. We are down to about 3,500 students now, so close to 9,000 about 4 weeks ago, and down to about 3,500 as of this afternoon that have not connected through e-learning. It may be that those students are connecting through the physical packets, and that is for a number of our elementary school students, so they might not be getting online, and they might be connecting through through our educational packets, but we're trying to clarify that and reach out and touch each and every family and student to see if there is a reason why they're not connecting with us on e-learning. That's the preferred method and the most robust method that we can engage them, because it involves the most resources that students will have at their fingertips at home. So again, we're down to about 3,500, which is great, and we will continue that process. Ms. Hicks, to answer your question, the bulk of those 3,500 are at the elementary level, and we believe to be at our youngest grade. So again, it could be that kindergartner where the parents are not engaging, or it could be those children that are in childcare, and so they're not engaging in the normal ways. But we want to touch every family and see if there are barriers to their accessing our e-learning and our continuity of learning, that we work with them to try and overcome those barriers.
Right. Do you have any sense of where these students are, where they live in the county? Is there a particular concentration in any area of those students that have not connected yet?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of the question, Ms. Hicks.
Do you have any idea, would you be able to tell us where the students live within the county that have not connected yet?
Yes, we are just now being able to break it down by clusters. So we have several clusters that have some of the highest numbers. And hold on a second, I'll have to put my glasses on so I can see the numbers. Annapolis cluster right now has the highest number that are not connected. And the Glen Burnie cluster would be second to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we are currently, next question for you, Dr. Arlotto. We are in the third week of the fourth marking period. This is the third week of the where students are going to be graded. For those students who aren't connected, those 3,500 students that are not currently connected, or those who have just recently become connected, what is going to be done for those students? Because we are now in the third week of the grading.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's certainly a struggle for us and a struggle for our teachers. You have to equate this to attendance, right? The student physically walking into a classroom. If they're not engaging in the online environment, then you have to equate this to a lack of attendance. And so we're going to continue to reach out to those students. But in terms of the learning and their grades, then we're asking the teachers to give them grace, to give them time, that when we can get them connected, that they can catch up and do that work. And that was one of the, so there is that one, we are asking that there is a graded assignment per week for our students. So it is not overwhelming to catch up with the work when we do get them connected.
Very good. All right, we're going to stick with you, Dr. Arlotto. Does the remote distance learning infrastructure, e-learning, provide the arrangements to assist students that need additional support? For example, our special education students.
Yes, so it falls into several different categories. So special education is one, and so we have had to reach out to each of the families, and a special education student has an IEP, and we have now had to work with the families and the school teams to do what we're doing now, to have video conferencing through Google Meets or Google Voice, and to rewrite those IEPs to an individualized continuity of learning plan. So it's no longer an IEP during this time we are in this environment. It is an individualized continuity of learning plan. And so we've gotten through an overall majority of those, something like 97 or 98% of our special ed students, we've rewritten those plans. And so it is, the special educators have created their own sites, and they are reaching out to students and providing those supports as best we can. There are some supports that we aren't going to be able to provide in the same way. And so we'll have to look to catch up some of those supports for those students, hopefully during the summer months if we are back open, and then into the fall again if we are open and operating in a more normal basis. The same is true for our ESOL students, those students that are learning English. That those ESOL teachers have created virtual classrooms, and they too are reaching out to their students, to their caseload, to the students that they would normally be working with in the classrooms. They're now working with in this environment, and it could be one-on-one sessions that they might be doing that. It could be small group sessions in a video conference, that they might be doing that as well. And then in terms of the last group, would be those students that are in need of other student support services, like mental health supports, counseling supports, school psychologists. Those groups are all engaged similarly as their teachers are. So they are reaching out to students that could either be on a caseload, or a teacher has referred them, just like they would if they were physically in their buildings, and a teacher would refer a student to their counselor or to the school psychologist, to an administrator. Those same sorts of referrals are happening. And then the school psychologists, our social workers, our school counselors are all reaching out and providing supports to students in this environment. Of course, it's different, but in this environment as best we can.
Okay, good. You spoke about the ESOL students. The e-learning platform is in English. So you mentioned the video support. Is that the only option for the ELL students?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you repeat it?
Is with the platform e-learning, it's in English. So the question is, with regards to the ESOL students, the ELL students, if the e-platform is in English, what options are available to reach those students?
So it's the ESOL teachers themselves that will then be reaching out and providing supports to those students. Is that correct, Dr. McMahon? Do you have something to add to how the ESOL teachers are working with their students?
You are correct, Dr. Arlotto. And additionally, the materials used within our Google Classroom are all our vetted curriculum materials. And so in those ESOL classrooms, the materials are in both English and Spanish.
Okay, very good. Many families, next question, Dr. Arlotto. Many families express difficulty with Google Classroom. Some manipulatives don't work, and some assignments may not be clear. What technological support is available for parents to help their child navigate the e-learning platform?
So again, this has been a struggle, right? We are a system that has always supported technology internally, and now we're having to figure out how to support technology externally. And we've not been equipped to do that. So we have added, for example, some folks to our help desk, our internal help desk, including 2 speakers of Spanish, so that they can assist with parents if they call in. We have had some folks have had some difficult time navigating the Google suite, the Google Classroom, as it's been set up. And I think some of those concerns are easing over time, as both the students and our parents, as they are trying to assist their students, are getting better at. And so we're trying to support them as best we can. We have added a call-in number that parents can now use. Of course, you can't. That's one of the things that became very clear to us, that parents were looking for some place to call to get assistance, and so we've added that. That's posted on our website. I'm looking for the number so I can recite it to you. I believe it's 410-222-5001. And that's posted on our website, and that's a number that we are going to. It's in both English and Spanish. Parents can call with concerns or ask for help. It's being answered several times a day, and then those questions are being filtered out to the appropriate person to respond to the parent to get them answers to their questions.
Good, thank you. Dr. Arlotto, we're sticking with you, Dr. Arlotto. So you ready? You got your water? All right.
You might want to pass some other questions around. I don't want to feel anybody left out.
Don't worry, this is your time. We're going to get to them.
Yes, ma'am.
During the last board meeting, the school board rejected your recommendation for an SU grading policy for all and voted for a grading choice option. Many parents and community members are confused by the grading option. Could you explain your understanding of that policy, what grade levels it applies to, and what steps you are taking to carry it out? In addition, what supports are available to help parents and students make a grading choice?
Yes, ma'am. So there is no, so I totally understand the confusion but there is no definitive new grading policy as of right now. The board had a very, very vigorous conversation about this, as many of you know, at our last board meeting. And the board, a motion was made and the board took an appropriate vote to request that, or to direct me as the superintendent, my staff, to develop a choice grading policy. That has not yet been developed, but as soon as it is, we will then get all that information out to students and parents so that they clearly understand what that means for them and how choices will be made. So we have been working with our student information vendor, a group called Power School, who does our grade book, and we've been in touch with them since the Thursday after our last board meeting, and been in constant contact with them, their process engineers and their software engineers, to see what we can do to adjust our system to accommodate what the board's desire is, which is again creating choice for those students taking high school courses. So that could be students, again, my interpretation, that could be students that are in either middle school taking a high school course, or in high school, of course, taking high school courses. Those are the students that would have a choice. Our elementary and non-high school taking course middle schoolers, there would not be a choice. That would be a SU grading process. So that would be automatic for our elementary and middle school students. We will develop several options. We are working on options that we are developing now, that we will present to the board for their consideration at their board meeting at the meeting of the board next Wednesday. Once that decision is made by the board, we will then be able to definitively define for our students and parents exactly what that choice will entail, how it will be, how they will be engaged in that choice, and we will publicize and publish that information.
So well, you're getting with your vendor, is it possible that that option will be available before the end of this school term? And if not, then what is left for the students?
So again, a really good question. I don't have the answers because we've not finalized options that we're going to present to the board. And so we are continuing to talk with our vendor about how they can assist us in making the adjustments. But we will, our goal is to present options to the board that can be, that meet both the spirit and letter of what they are requesting of me and my team in terms of choice for students taking high school courses, and one that we can implement this school year before our school year is complete. Those are sort of the parameters that we are operating under, that we meet the spirit and letter of what our board has requested of us, and that it can be done this school year. And so again, we will be presenting options to our board at their next board meeting.
With e-learning, it may be, you'll give the parents that it may be unfair. It may give an unfair advantage to students who have parents at home to help them with their assignments. How are you making sure that the students are completing the work independently and not their parents? It seems as if the grades earned may not be their students' work, solely the students' work.
That's certainly a possibility, of course. That is certainly a possibility. We don't have the ability to police that work done at home. And so we'll rely on our students and our parents to engage appropriately, and that students will, certainly we want parents to assist with the technology and the access, but the idea is that students complete that work independently and on their own.
Okay. What what do you see as the most important educational equity gaps in Anne Arundel County? What can you do in your position to address it?
So I think that the first is access to technology, to a device that a student can appropriately access our e-learning suite, their teachers' Google Classrooms, and all that, as we know, as technology that's out there, that there is just a tremendous amount of resources that students can use to assist them with their learning. And as you said, and they're having to do it so much more independently now in this distance learning environment. So that's the first. And so we have focused on taking the Chromebooks that we have in our buildings, and we have many of them, many thousands, tens of thousands, that we have been using for instruction for a number of years. And so we had to get in to harvest these. We continue to do that. They have to be cleaned. They have to then be, what's the word I'm looking for? They have to be appropriately, program's not the right word, but they have to be able to accept a Wi-Fi signal that's outside of our school system. And so they have to be updated in that way. And then we have to go through the distribution process. So that's been really important to us. Like I said, we've given out 10,000 and we will continue to do that. The second part about equity in this environment is ensuring that students, once they have a device, if they didn't have one previously, that they have access to a strong Wi-Fi signal or to that cellular signal, right? They have to have access to that, and you want it to be uninterrupted, right? You don't want that student being kicked, in and out of whatever it is that they're working on. And so you hope that they've got a strong, uninterrupted signal. That second part of connectivity, right? So first, access to devices. I think we have some real sway in eliminating that gap. Not so much in the connectivity. I don't have the ability to build cellular towers and then to install Wi-Fi in homes. I don't have that ability. But what we have done is we have worked with partners and tried to advertise and get out to our families how they can best access or create access in their home if that access doesn't already exist. And so Comcast is a great example. They're one of our educational partners. They've worked with our foundation for years. Comcast, for a number of years, has had a program where students and families can access internet connectivity for something like $9.95 a month. They have waived those fees and are providing that free for 60, maybe 90 days now. And so we've been publishing that information to our families, and it's up on our e-learning site. So that's an example where we're saying, here's a way for you families to connect. Another thing that we have done is that we have brought as best we can our Wi-Fi signal in our schools closer to the front of the buildings. Inside the buildings, but still closer to the front of the buildings, and then enhance that signal. So now, and we've opened up that Wi-Fi. Normally it was password protected when you're in our buildings. We've now opened that up during the day. So if a family really needed to, they could drive into one of our parking lots, for example, and use one of our devices to log in, download lessons, upload assignments, and they would have access that way. That is some small way that we can help begin to eliminate that access gap. Likewise, we have put up on our, I know that all the, in talking with all the major carriers of cellular service, like Verizon and the others, they have increased people's data at no cost. And they have, and they're no longer charging for hotspot connectivity, I might be using those words incorrectly. It's not my forte, but basically if a parent has a cellular device, they can turn that into a hotspot and they can connect that Chromebook or device to a Wi-Fi signal through their phone, creating that a hotspot. And we've put directions for that on our e-learning site as well. So those are, the first one is eliminating the gaps in terms of the device. We have a greater role to play in that, and we'll continue that. Connectivity is one that's not as easy for us. And so that's where we're doing what we can, and we encourage our partners to go out there and help getting families connected.
Thank you. So are there plans to continue surveying families as part of school registration to determine the technological needs of your students at home? Should this extend into the fall?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the answer is yes. If we are in some way, shape, or form, we're hoping that we'll be back into schools, even if it's on a limited basis come the fall. And when we go through those registration processes and where families are completing some of the normal paperwork that you do at the beginning of each school year, then we will hopefully conduct, our plan is to hopefully conduct some more of a specific survey about what needs are for folks. But we're trying to do that now as families are coming in and accessing our meals on a day-to-day basis. We're querying them if they have access needs or device needs. And so we're trying to sort of informally collect some of that information now.
So is the plan going forward that every student will be issued or will have available to them a Chromebook if they need it, as opposed to one per family? Would it be possible going forward that every student will have a Chromebook available to them?
Not at this time, no. We just simply don't have, I don't have 85,000 Chromebooks to do the simple math. So the answer is no, we're not in a place where we are going to go fully one-to-one. Certainly because of the current circumstances that we're in, that's going to be a more focused conversation about what that might look like. And so we would need to, again, build before we go to an immediate one-to-one where we start handing out devices to students. We would need to create the structures to support that. One I mentioned earlier is the technological structure, right? Having a help desk and having, if you hand out devices and they go down or they're broken, you have to be able to replace them in short order and get them repaired and get them back to students. So you have to have a solid number that are available for that exchange if they go down or they're broken. Connectivity will continue to be an issue, but we are not yet ready for that type of environment. The other thing that we are, I think it's important at this stage to just to talk about briefly is to build the environment appropriately so that if and when we have to continue this further down the road, or we have to do this again, or we choose to do more of this after this current circumstance is over, like you're suggesting, Ms. Hickson, go to one-to-one, and maybe we are going to do more distance learning. We have to have an internal platform, an LMS, a management system. We don't have one in our system right now. There are several out there that are very good. And so we are putting out on the street an RFI, a request for information, from companies that have these learning management systems and LMS. And so we're going to start to gather information because I think it's important. This has shown us that we need to have those. While we are piecing it together through Google Suite, that is not a comprehensive learning management system. And so that's one of the things that we are putting out on the street, and we're going to request information. And at some point, I envision going to our board and talking about a contract and bringing in a vendor that we will have this sort of management system. I would assume that Dr. Lindsay and her team have something like that because they have they access much more online learning than we are used to in the K-12 system with some of their hybrid courses and online systems. But that's something that we're going to be looking at for the future.
Dr. Arlotto, what plans, if any, are in the works to celebrate our graduates?
Yeah, that's that was really near and dear to me. I've spent much of my career in high schools as a high school teacher and coach and a assistant principal and a high school principal. And I'll tell you quite honestly, I have a high school senior at home who's struggling that through absence of her senior year and her friends and prom and graduation and those things. And so this one's difficult. The high school principals have been meeting regularly during the course of this closure, much as we have in this learning and in this online environment. And the high school principals have been talking and have a work group gathering information and coming up with options and ideas about how to celebrate our this class of 2020. Whether it's in a senior awards program or the graduations themselves, whatever it is, what are the things that we can do? And first, in the environment that we're in, right? We're in this environment right now where we cannot, for the health and safety of everybody involved, bring groups of people together. And in terms of the governor's our governor's, and appropriately so, executive order that you can't bring more than 10 people together in a gathering. And that's, and of course, I believe that is a smart move for all of us in terms of health and safety. Because of the environment we're in, we can't do large gatherings and celebrations today the way we normally would or have in the past. And so we are looking at what are those ways that we can celebrate this special class of 2020 in the current environment. And then what are those things that we could possibly do into the future if and when some of the social distancing guidelines are begin to relax. And that may be when venues can open again. And we can bring large groups of folks of our students together. That may be we're talking about over the course of the summer. Maybe we do something in August where we can bring our class of 2020 together. And so they can be with each other, they can be with they can say goodbye to their teachers. And so this is part of what the high school principals and that work group are talking about. In addition to, if this environment, this current restrictive environment continues through the summer and into the fall, maybe it's in December when many of those graduates are back from college, and for example, and maybe we do something next December. I don't know. It's sort of all on the table. We want to take the time to appropriately celebrate them. Again, it's sort of near and dear to me for a number of different reasons. But we have to sort of look at it in the current environment we're in and where things might be in the summer, and then where they might be, say, mid next year. And then we'll go from there.
All right. So if there are any parents or high school seniors themselves that have some ideas as to how they want to be celebrated, where should they send those ideas to?
I know that the high school principals have been talking to their SGAs and their student leadership at their schools to a degree, and talking to parents also. Many of those, each of the high schools has a graduation planning committee. So I would assume that the high school principals have been reaching out and talking to them. But the place would be to go is to get in touch with your child's high school principal or assistant principal and offer your suggestions and thoughts, and get those to the high school principals as that planning group continues to talk.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Arlotto. All right, our next questions are going to be directed to Ms. Corkadel. Ms. Corkadel, how does the board satisfy the requirements for in-person testimony that might be required during a public meeting? Do boards have to allow members of the public to participate in virtual meetings?
Very good question. Thank you very much. I'll tell you, you think you know the rules that you have to operate under until you actually get into a unique circumstance. And so When we were originally faced with this, we chose not to have our meeting in March, and I immediately reached out to our board attorney. Our board attorney works with other board attorneys across the state. It's a very small group of folks, and they stay in touch with the State Board of Education. They stay in touch with the group who oversees the Open Meetings Act. There's a compliance board, as well as other through the COSA system that are involved in education law. So the first thing we did is got an understanding of what the state is going to require of us and how the state would view a variety of options that we are now faced, given that because we are a board of 9, I add Dr. Arlotto, and I don't have room for anybody else, no staff, no production team to share the meetings on TV. So with that in mind, we started very simple. We got an understanding of what a teleconference would look like, and we used that for our very first meeting. The rules of what we discuss in public versus closed session has not changed. The budget gets discussed in public session, for example. Policies get debated on in public, and legal briefings, negotiations with unions, they stay in closed session like they have always traditionally done. The difference has to do with the access. Now, Anne Arundel County is the most, I'm told, the most transparent local education agency in the entire state, and some would argue in the top 3 in our region, meaning that we go above and beyond the suggested parliamentary public comments as well as the Open Meeting Act requirements as it relates to receiving public testimony. Clearly, under these circumstances, we cannot be as transparent, and but I think we are continuing in that spirit in a couple ways. Number one is that Maryland law says, and I'm the non-attorney in the room speaking, and so, you know, I got loaded with a whole bunch of references that I don't think is going to carry over very well in a town hall. But the bottom line is that the public has to have the opportunity to hear what we are saying, have an opportunity to see the draft agenda, because our agenda is finalized technically during the meeting at the very beginning. So what everybody sees in advance is actually a draft. We publish it. We make sure that people have access to a minimum of a telephone number, because we know that not everybody may have access to TV or to a Zoom channel or to a Teams meeting. We also have to make sure that the public participation is put in the compartment of it's a business meeting that we engage the public in. We have business to conduct, and all board meetings are business meetings that the public is privy to. With that in mind, we set up an opportunity for people first to at least be able to listen to our public side of things before we go into a closed session if needed. And then secondly, the second step we did is, now that we can give the ability for everybody to see us, how much public input can we render, because we still have business to conduct. And so we stripped our agenda down to the absolutely need to survive for a couple sessions. Then we added in, of course, our core duties. Our core duties are policy, our budget, and our quasi-judicial role of appeals. So we started adding them into the agendas. The bottom line is that we have to provide the viewing and the ability to interact, but not live like we normally would do. Now, some school boards have, based on their technology platform and the quantity and the volume and how many schools that they're operating under, some of them only have 5 bodies in their board. Some of them have like 11 and 13. So each local education agency has interpreted it differently. We have chosen to do this in steps as technology has become stabilized for us. And so that is, everybody can view us. They can submit questions to agenda items in advance. And I'm now looking to expand how close we can get to the meeting time so that if something does need to be added, because we're in an emergency. So there are going to be times where Dr. Arlotto's team is going to reach out to us. Things are going to emerge that we're going to have to address that we would normally address in a slower way.
What you're saying, Michelle, is that you would, you're looking into having that window for public comment when it can send in their public comments closer to the actual meeting time as opposed to the day before in the afternoon.
That is correct. So our technology, the way we have to structure this, we have portions of our staff have to be at home and portions of our staff in a small group, not more than 10, are permitted to be on site at the Parham building to permit the live streaming to occur. So we are now working through the logistics of how close up to that agenda item can we take public testimony and what does that look like? So we used to never accept an email unless there was a disability or some other type of barrier as a form of testimony. You had to appear in person whenever possible, with very, very few exceptions. We have clearly had to do the complete opposite. Instead of no email, it's all email. And it's signing up in advance. So we're trying to relax that. I wish we did have a little bit more availability of multiple platforms. Some of these platforms have access and security issues as it relates. Zoom is great for these environments, but in our business meeting environments, there is an exposure to security that has come up by the Maryland State General Attorney, Attorney General guy, I guess, or his department, as well as
Thank you, Michelle. I don't want to cut you off. We want to get to as many questions as possible. Thank you. So what I heard you say is that right now the public is not able to engage in the virtual meetings live, but you do accept email testimony.
That is correct.
Okay. So a question here from the audience. I'm going to read it verbatim. That's why I said from the audience, okay? I'm going to read it as they wrote it. I would like to know if Ms. Corkadel could speak to the board's decision to pursue a choice for grades at the end of the semester in opposition to Dr. Arlotto's recommendation for pass-fail. Our equity team at Arundel High School has written an open letter to the board members and circulated a petition in favor of a move to pass incomplete grading for the duration of the closure. However, we have not heard from any board members who are willing to meaningfully engage in our equity concerns. And we are very concerned about the stress this choice option places on Anne Arundel County Public Schools students, families, and guidance counselors during a time when they are already under great duress. Has the board discussed these issues since the last public board meeting?
First, thank you very much for your question. Grading is one of about a dozen things that are going to be crossing our path in very quick order as we continue to adapt. Now, the board received Dr. Arlotto's information. Myself, along with others, had staked our cases as it related to our concerns of equity, of the choice, and of the overall impact. Those were discussed and flushed through, and then the decision was made. Because this is a public conversation and a public motion was made, the board would not have any follow-up conversations because that would violate the Open Meetings Act that we were referring to prior. However, as Dr. Arlotto had indicated, the staff is going to be presenting additional details. The public is going to be able to provide testimony and have it read into the record by Ms. Howell, is how we've been doing it, for that independent voice. I don't think everybody wants to hear the president. I know a couple school districts are doing that, and I think it's best served from an independent, voice in its entirety. So there will be that opportunity for the board to hear additional feedback. I am familiar with the email that you had referenced that's coming in from that group, and I have read it in grave detail. Until we see additional information from the staff and what that could look like, I think that would shortchange the possibilities of how we could proceed and take those next steps. The motion did not limit how we approach it. And as an advocate for equity, That did not go away just because a vote occurred by 5-4. I will continue to advocate and find as many opportunities as possible to ensure that we are doing it in as equitable a way as possible. And I know my board members' hearts were all in the right place, but perhaps coming from different perspectives. And I know that they're taking to heart the conversations and the follow-ups. I do not want to speak on their individual behalfs, but I can assure you that equity will remain in that forefront, and it'll be our job and the community's job to hold us accountable to those.
So is it possible to revisit that decision and for the board to modify their decision?
At any moment in time, the board, depending on what is being proposed, can modify by a simple vote, and some requires a supermajority. But there is always an opportunity, and I think it is always good leadership to continually be reevaluating. That is part of that equity lens component, is a continual reevaluation. We don't just do something, walk away and say, well, we did the pre-work, where our job is done, and we wash our hands. Now, granted, this is a little bit more regulation and duties of the superintendent than you'd normally see. And I think that kind of threw quite a few people, myself included, a little aback. But that should not discount our obligation to you to make sure that that conversation does not end. And as your president, I can assure you that we have set up when the agenda hits to address that, no matter how long it takes. We were up till 2 o'clock in the morning addressing it the first time around. It's going, my goal is to have it in the beginning portion of the meeting so that everybody can hear the questions and concerns that have been submitted in, and we'll take it from there.
Great. You mentioned equity. What guidelines does the school board use to determine and to ensure that existing and future policies and decisions are equitable, and therefore doesn't widen the opportunity and homework gap?
Well, as you know, we have some newcomers to the board of recent. We're now over a year. And in the course of that, our professional organization, known as MAAB, which is the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, for the listeners, they have a series that starts with orientation and continues throughout the year at our conferences and during non-conference times to make sure the board members are well equipped and have the similar toolkits. Maybe not, we're not teachers, so our toolkit's going to look a little different than a teacher's toolkit, but we have equally available to us those training opportunities. We did over the fall meet to have training on implicit bias as well as equity. And so our Dr. Arlotto's team was kind enough to sit down with the board at a board retreat and provide that training. But I would argue that the training's ongoing and that no one is 100% expert, and everybody brings to the table of definition a different perspective. Our goal is to continue to work to improve on that. But in the here and now, that equity lens is in the forefront, and you're seeing that in the policy that'll be coming up in its second reader, this upcoming meeting on equity, that the state not only mandates that we do, but we have been looking for, we were waiting basically for the language from the state, was part of that delay. That is due to be adopted by no later than July 1st. So that is another conversation that I would encourage our residents, is another way that we can make sure that we are doing things equitable by ensuring we have a solid equity policy to hold accountability. And of course, our ethics and professional conduct play a very important role in the accountability factor and what our residents can do should they see something inequitable and how best to address it.
All right, going back to the board's vote for choice grading, the question is, Dr. Arlotto has expressed that he strongly believes that the school vendor, Power School, will not be able to make the changes during the current grading system by the end of the quarter. What are the next steps if the vendor is not able to accommodate this grading change? Did the board discuss what those next steps are if it's not possible?
The board's discussion was part of that conversation that we had at our last meeting. And no, it did not come up what the possibilities or a plan B was. I believe with the options presented to us, that will afford us that opportunity. But let's not forget and limit, I'm a little uncomfortable with us focusing exclusively on one vendor. We have teachers, we have students, and we have families who are directly involved in this decision. Our impact on them and their duties are definitely something we also have to consider. We have to consider the whole tech capacity and our impact, not just on one vendor. The financial impact, is this coming at a cost? We do not have the authority clearly to approve. All of those things, I'm very confident that our members came to the table with and will continue to ensure that we're doing our best for it. But I also just want to add one more statement here, and let me just pull up my paper, my sheet, but I really do think at the end of the day, there was one other thing that I wanted to mention, that in this next step, we need to go back to the equity lens that you heard some of our members reference during their debate. And we need to make sure that the options presented to us, those decisions equally have an equity lens. As I said, I cannot speak to a person's individual definition of that lens. I can only continue to encourage an increase in training and under our emergency, do our best to ensure everybody's thinking it through.
Thank you. The next question is regarding curriculum. The person asked, do you believe that teaching American, national, and local history at all grade levels can provide students with both the truth and understanding of our history that can eradicate racism? If so, what are your plans for updating the curriculum for every grade level?
Very good question. Thank you very much. And I think this is almost a continuation of a conversation that you participated in during our public commentary prior to our COVID in our boardroom. And my understanding of that is that we have started to vet some of that, and my fellow member, Ms. Alvey, had expressed and shared with the board, with the public, some of the things that she's been working on with Dr. Arlotto. The details of what specifically is being taught is a duty typically to the superintendent. But as far as the board's will to consider when those plans are handed to us, I think that the precept that we continue to, history's kind of become, in education in general, I think has maybe fallen away from its main focus. And I believe that what you are proposing and some of the things that you and the others are proposing is one way that we can get ourselves recentered to ensure that the history is not just something in a book. I believe what you guys are really getting at is how do we make the history come alive so that we learn it.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, thank you for your time. We're going to move on now to Dr. Lindsay. Dr. Lindsay, are you there?
On mute.
All right.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, first question for you, Dr. Lindsay. How will COVID-19 impact college application timelines?
I want to just start real quick and say I want to congratulate Dr. Arlotto and his team. They've done a really tough situation. So George, congratulations to everybody that you're working with. We appreciate your efforts. I'm sorry, COVID, could you just repeat the part of the question? Impact our applications?
Yes, the timelines for your applications, for college applications.
The timelines have been altered. So right now we're enrolling for spring. We have 3 sessions. For summer. We have 3 different sessions for summer. We'll be enrolling for fall starting June the 1st. So we did push them back.
Do those involved in the equity evaluations have executive or cabinet level positions to ensure that they are always at the table when critical decisions are made?
You froze for the
Equity
very
question.
first part of the question. Can you just do the first part?
Yes, the question was regarding equity and making decisions through an equity lens. We wanted to know if those equity evaluations have executive or cabinet level positions to ensure that they are always at the table when critical decisions are made.
I have something that's called President's Cabinet. We meet at least once a month. At this point in time, it's actually all of the assistant deans and above. I expanded the opportunity for people to participate specifically related to COVID. So we do everything through the equity lens because our student body is so diverse, and we just want to make sure that everybody's completing and succeeding at the same rates. So yes, they are at the table. I will tell you that my board has equity goals in my goals, which flow down to the vice presidents and the dean. So we are not only expected to do it, we are evaluated and monitored against our success in moving the needle for equity.
Thank you. Given the variety of grading policies from county to county and state to state, some grading policies are pass-fail, others are letter grade, some may be a combination of both. Many parents have a deep concern about the impact on their child's admission into college. What steps have you taken or are currently considering to alleviate their concerns?
We've actually been working very, very closely with the University of Maryland system. The pass-fail grade as opposed to the letter grade really has implications across the board. So it sounds like it might be an easy statement or an easy answer, but it's actually very complicated for our students. The way it's calculated for grade point average and overall success. So we have decided that we are going to give our students the opportunity first that we will administer a letter grade. Should the student decide that they want to pass fail instead of a letter grade, we will accept that and we will do that for them. That in turn made us work very, very closely with the system like the University of Maryland to make sure that those classes would count towards their prerequisite classes or to count towards their general education classes. And University of Maryland has agreed that it will do that for our students. So that was a big win for us and for our students that we were able to do that for them. And I think it was just a very, very collaborative effort trying to look at what's in the best interest of the students. Students also have the opportunity to withdraw from the semester, but we're not encouraging that students withdraw. We are encouraging them to utilize the support systems that we've built around them for them to stay. But withdrawal is an option. Incomplete is an option should they decide that they want to continue their class into a subsequent semester. Again, we will issue a grade first. However, students can have the opportunity to work with their professors to say that they would rather have a pass-fail, which would indicate to the person who's receiving the pass-fail that that student has at least a C or higher in the class.
Next question is for a parent that has a high schooler. And the parent says, regardless of how we ultimately document the student progress for this semester, they would like you to provide some insight into how post-secondary educational institutions are planning to adjust their evaluation criteria for accepting students, in general or into a particular program, or with regards to awarding scholarships.
Well, first off, we are an open-ended college, so we take the top 100% of the people that apply. So we are open-ended, we accept all students. So regardless of what they're bringing to us, we're going to meet our students where they are and take them hopefully to where they want to go. I think when you're looking at specialized admission or restricted admission, most of that is at the four-year college level, both in the public and the private entities. But we accept everyone, and we're happy to have everybody come and interact with us so that we can work with them to help them attain their educational goal through our college.
Right. Do you anticipate financial aid funding cuts for the follow-on semester?
No, in fact, if anything, we're anticipating additional financial need as opposed to what we've been dealing with, because we've got more and more students now that are being impacted, as are their families. So traditionally, we have been given out a fair amount of financial aid for every student that's eligible for it. We have Pell Grants, a work study program for students that want to work for additional fees. Our foundation provided over $1.2 million in scholarships, but to explain the need, that was only 20% of the people that actually applied through our foundation for those particular dollars. So clearly the need is there. And as of today, we have found that it's a CARES program. It's through the federal government. Trillions of dollars have gone into this particular opportunity for community colleges. We were allotted $4 million. 50% of it has to go directly to students, and 50% of it goes to retaining our current workforce. So the money will be delivered directly to students that are financial aid qualified and able to attain the money for an educational purpose. So the CARES program is the federal nuance to our programs with the additional $2 million. I was on a call this morning, and unfortunately the parameters for what students and the colleges can use this money for.
I'm sorry, Dr. Lindsay, you're
still in development.
Dr. Lindsay, I'm sorry. Your last, what you said, you broke up a little bit.
The CARES money that's coming, the $4 million, half of that goes to our students and half of that will go to the college to utilize to keep our current workforce employed.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Some students are not academically ready for an entry-level and community college course. Until recently, those students had to pay for and take a 0 credit or remedial course. The person writes, I'm aware that recently the community college changed to a combination or co-requisite approach where the student needs to pass the initial developmental portion of a course before being allowed to continue to remain in the traditional portion of the class. What can you say about the pass rate under both the former and current systems? And can you suggest a way to partner with AACPS and or other community organizations to reduce the number of students entering community college in need of the cost for those remediation classes?
Well, this is where the K-12 system and the college actually have incredible partnerships. We do a lot of articulation agreements with the transfer of the classes, the prerequisite opportunities. In our agenda through our new strategic plan and the current one that we're getting ready to retire, one of our issues dealt with equity and getting students through and not having a disproportionate number of students in prerequisite classes. There was a time when you could take upwards of 3 classes to get into a transfer level, general education level course. That has changed. We now do it as a co-requisite model. The co-requisite is infused, so it's not really like you have to complete the first part before you can get into the second part. And the results of what we have found in this model is our students actually doing better with shorter amount of time in remediation and more time focused that they need to attain their grades for transfer or for a degree with us.
Okay, great. So with the shutdown, many things that once was thought as impossible is possible. For example, teleworking and conducting a town hall like this. Can you talk to us about how this pandemic has impacted or reframed your thinking with regards to how we go about delivering education?
Well, I think if anybody ever doubted the benefit of online education, we have all come to embrace it. So traditionally, our college has been offering hybrid courses, online courses, as well as face-to-face courses. And there are some people who thought the only way a student can learn, obviously, is face-to-face. What we're finding is that's also not necessarily the case. And we are hoping to bring our face-to-face classes back to the college as soon as Dr. Arlotto spoke to the social distancing issues and the regulations as far as not having large groups. But we are finding that students have been very, very successful in that endeavor.
Okay. This question again is for parents who are concerned about their students' admission into college. In addition to grades, are there other areas that colleges give significant consideration to, i.e. the community service, extracurricular activities? And with those things not available right now, what options are there?
Again, I think the question that parent has posed is for a more traditional student looking at a 4-year program, possibly going into some competitive majors. We don't have any of those obstacles at Anne Arundel Community College, and we highly recommend even students that are looking at 4-year colleges to look at our college as a first option and a first choice for a variety of reasons, the quality and the rigor of the programs. But we don't have, the only program that we have prerequisite kind of entrance requirements for would be our nursing program. And there is criteria there as far as certain courses that were taken with certain grades. Letters of recommendation certainly can help, but our nursing program has been the most competitive program as far as probably having involvement with that, followed closely by the physician's assistance program.
How has this pandemic affected summer college classes?
Well, everything is online. So summer 1, summer 2, and summer 3, we offer 3 summer sessions. They are all online at this point in time. So that has been a significant change for our students. We are looking at fall. We're starting our first full semester online. We're looking at our first 8-week classes being online and our first 13-week classes being online. We're hoping that we can move into more face-to-face a second 8-week timeframe, which would be around October the 22nd. So, I mean, clearly there's been a shift. Clearly there's been a change. We've also had to work very, very hard to get our online support programs available to our students. So things like online tutoring, support services you spoke about with students with disabilities, the myriad of services that accompany our students that would wrap around the services that are what makes them successful in the classroom have also gone online. So we're moving everything in that direction. A lot of our classes that have clinical classes are nursing programs or our science programs that have like biology labs, and even our art studio classes that would require being in a classroom with which to do it. The hope is as soon as we can start doing a bit of social distancing, we can offer those classes still face-to-face with more class sections, but fewer students in each section.
All right, thank you. Speaking of the fall, our next question is going to bounce back to Dr. Arlotto. Dr. Arlotto, you there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Dr. Arlotto, will summer school be expanded to help students catch up on missed learning?
So that's all going to be situational dependent on whether what we're allowed to do in terms of social distancing and the health and safety of our students and staff. So we are planning for several scenarios. The short answer is yes, we're hoping to expand summer offerings at a variety of levels, particularly for our special education students, whom some will need compensatory services that we've not been able to fully provide during this current environment. So again, the short answer is we hope to expand our summer offerings for students, but that will be first, of course, dependent on how we're allowed to bring students together, if at all, small groups, large groups, or is it all going to be online as we are providing instruction or as we're providing learning now. And so we are going to plan for several different scenarios.
Okay, great. Some school districts have begun to discuss how the fall school term, how it will be structured given this pandemic. They've considered online learning, staggered school days, and even extended hours that reduce class sizes. Has AACPS developed a plan to onboard the school year if this pandemic continues into the fall?
So no, we haven't developed a plan, but we are planning for a plan. So we've started conversations with our team. Dr. McMahon and her team have started conversations. There is a work group at the state level. So Dr. Salmon, our state superintendent, has convened a work group that involves some superintendents and some specialists in a number of different areas. And they are going to be making some recommendations to the State Board of Education about how pre-K-12 instruction will look going into the fall in some form of recovery. I'll use that term loosely, learning recovery. academic recovery. And so we'll take certainly some direction from the state and what the state is able to offer. But we have begun that process to say, what might we look like in the fall? And again, I'll go back to the same answer in this, with regard to the summer, expanding our summer offerings, is that the fall will be very dependent upon the situation we're in. How many students we're able to bring into a building, the number of staff members, those kinds of things. Yes, it is it's a conversation among the superintendents across the state here in Maryland. And as you know, as you read the news and you watch the news, it's a conversation across the country.
Question regarding your staff. Who has replaced Anthony Alston as the regional superintendent?
So Dr. Alston was the regional assistant superintendent for the Chesapeake and North County clusters. And he has been, there's currently in acting in that place, somebody that's acting, a gentleman by the name of Bill Goodman.
Right. Thank you. I'm looking at the time. It looks as if we may have time for one more question during this portion of the town hall. That question for Dr. Arlotto. This question is about transportation. It said the transportation department is implementing they would like to know how the transportation department is implementing the 27 recommendations of from the consultant to envision a healthier and functional transportation system for the next year.
So our transportation system is of course, working with the software that we purchased several years ago. But with regard to the report itself, we have, and our board, what we presented to our board and what our board has approved and moved forward to our county executive for consideration is the funding of the positions that were in that report. That is one thing that's going on. And then there are several things that, since we are not providing transportation, physically providing transportation to students now because of school closure, then the transportation division is looking to do some of the other recommendations that they now have time to do, like updating job descriptions. That was one of the recommendations, to create and update, and or create SOP, standard operating procedures, in several different areas. That was another one of the recommendations made by the consultant. And so those are some of the things that our transportation division is working on now.
All right, thank you. And thank you very much, panelists. I enjoy being here as your moderator. With that last response, this concludes the question and answer period of the town hall. Any questions not addressed can be submitted by email to townhall@AnneArundelCountyNAACP.org. At this time, I would like to go ahead and turn the town hall over to, I'm sorry to mention that all of those questions that are submitted, they should be submitted by tomorrow, April 29th by 6 p.m. Those questions that we received at that time will be forwarded to the presenters on our panel for response, and those responses will be posted on the Anne Arundel County NAACP website within 2 weeks. I will now turn over the town hall to our first Vice President, Mr. Antonio Downing. Antonio?
Thank you, Latika. Good evening. My name is Antonio Downing. Currently serve as the first Vice President of the Anne Arundel County NAACP branch. On behalf of the Anne Arundel County NAACP branch, under the leadership of President Jacqueline Boone Alsop, I'd like to thank everyone for participating in tonight's virtual town hall, the impact of education by COVID-19. Also, I'd like to thank Dr. Arlotto, Ms. Corkadel, for taking, and also Dr. Lindsay for taking the time to answer these important questions that members of our community had a chance to hear from you all. Also, I'd like to give a round of applause to our moderator, Ms. Latika Hicks. She did a fantastic job in keeping the conversation on point and on focus. Her passion for education definitely serves our community and our school system very well. To the viewing audience, I would also like to thank them for the opportunity for you to tune in with us to witness this live stream event. We definitely thank you for your participation. Also at this time, I'd like to recognize our co-sponsoring organizations as they will provide closing remarks. First, starting with the Caucus of African American Leaders, the Honorable Carl Snowden. The floor is yours, sir.
Needs to be unmuted, Carl.
Thank you so very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, let me just thank all of the participants. A lot of people are watching. I'm on the phone. Can you use the phone?
Yes.
Okay. What I was going to simply say was I want to thank everyone who took part in this particular town hall meeting. One of the concerns I think that the community has that we need to talk about is, given the fact that we've had an opportunity gap and an achievement gap, what I was curious to find out, and maybe this will be answered in a correspondence from both Dr. Lindsay as well as Dr. Arlotto, what are we doing to be able to address this opportunity gap during this period of time with this epidemic going on? I think a lot of people, based on the questions I've seen, really wanted people to get into how are we doing this challenge, really reaching students who have these great needs. If we started off with a situation where our youngsters were falling behind, clearly during this particular period, they're probably falling behind even further. And I want to know what we're going to be doing proactively to address these issues as we move forward. So again, I want to thank everyone for their attention and participating. But I think this should be, as was mentioned earlier, an ongoing continuation discussion where members of the community can meet with the leadership to discuss how we close these gaps. Thank you again.
Next, I would like to have Ms. Emma Buckman, who's a representative of March on Maryland. She would offer some closing remarks.
Hi, all. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, thank you for allowing me to be here today to help put this together, and thank you to the panelists for your time and your answers to our questions. I just want to echo Mr. Snowden and say that, you know, we would like to continue working to get answers to questions done as well. Just to give a couple of updates from March on Maryland. What we're doing right now in the face of COVID-19 is to be a resource and an outlet for people in our community. We have several national initiatives occurring right now that are being used to help local restaurants, medical professionals on the front lines, as well as those who have lost wages in the hospitality and restaurant industries. In that similar vein, we've been working with local organizations. So if you'd like to learn about any of those initiatives, please feel free to reach out to March on Maryland. And apart from that, as I said, we're here to listen to the voices in our community and to see how we can best fill those needs. So please reach out if you feel that there's a resource that you need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. Next, we'll have some parting words from Ms. Monica Lindsay, who's representing Connecting the Dots.
Good evening, everybody. I do appreciate the guests and their very candid and thorough responses to the questions. Jen Haber is here and she's going to give some updates on connecting the dots and what we're up to. She's giving me big eyes, but she's going to do the closing remarks. I just want to say I appreciate the guests today and their participating in the panel discussion.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much to the NAACP and partners for organizing this absolutely critical get together for questions and answers. I think we could probably do a town hall every week to really get to all of the questions that everybody has. And I also want to echo what Carl Snowden said about always working toward equity and just the critical importance of that in every aspect of the students' lives, frankly, right now, and connecting the dots, wanting to be partnered with that, and not only working within the community, but also working very specifically with the schools and other organizations that can reach out to the families in need and act as a real partner personally with families and communities that need that extra assist. We are planning a virtual remembrance for one of the victims, King Johnson, who was lynched in Anne Arundel County. And I wonder, I saw that Drake Smith is also on the call, and the NAACP Youth Organization has been doing a great job getting organized there, and he might want to say a little bit about that. We had to move that from being an actual event to a virtual event, but we'll certainly get the word out about that. And we're also making plans because we do want to have ongoing conversations about our history and the huge impact it has on our present, and definitely interested in having that ongoing conversation about working into making a huge part of the history curriculum our local, state, and national history, and really not just about bringing it to life, but about actually bringing it to our students' attention, and to really speak the truth about our collective histories. So I just want to thank everybody so much for being here and for the work that they do, and say that it seems to me that the work is in progress for sure, and that we all want to continue to work toward equity and helping communities that are still marginalized. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll have members of the United Black Clergy to offer any final remarks for us for the evening.
Talk to Drake.
Apostle Thomas or Bishop Palmer. Mrs. Palmer.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for having us tonight. The United Black Clergy is a grassroots civic organization made up of over 41 clergy members who have their hands and feet in the communities in Anne Arundel County. In closing, the UBC, the United Black Clergy, as well as other organizations, friends, families, parents alike are very concerned about our children and their future in Anne Arundel County. Whenever you have a state, a county, or a city or a community that does not devote all of their time, talent, and resources to support our children with the same equity and learning as other children, then we have failed them. The numbers and results speaks for themselves, especially when you have approximately, as Dr. Arlotto so eloquently told us tonight, over 85,000 children in our school system alone. And previously it was over 10% of those students who were not able to get access to online learning. That means those children are sitting at home, not getting the education that they need. There will never be enough words to express the pain that our communities are feeling at this time. It is obvious that the system is not working for them and has failed our children. And contrary to what some may believe, our children do want to and should have the ability to learn and achieve just as other children who has those opportunities. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. And before we end tonight's town hall, I'd like to have our youth and college division president, Mr. Drake Smith, if we would just offer some brief remarks.
Am I muted?
Yes, you're good.
Great. Well, everybody, this was a great town hall. Transparency is always the best thing, but this is the state of education. So we want to make sure this, I'm definitely going to do this on my multiple resources, that everything you learned tonight, you make sure you tell it back to students, whether that be a niece, nephew, daughter, friends, definitely the churches, your youth ministries. Make sure a lot of the information you gave out tonight goes back to the students, because I've everything Dr. Arlotto, Dr. Lindsay, Miss Corkadel said, I was listening, and a lot of the stuff really, hit home for me, because that's the stuff I've been living through on the daily with the online learning. And some students are very busy, and some students, as we speak now, are still engaged in online learning. So we want to make sure that they know everything. I know I took a few notes about some of the numbers, some of the stuff that Dr. Arlotto was saying, and just make sure you go back to the youth and tell them, hey, this is what's going on. This is your game plan. But the most important thing that I think, make sure you just recognize the seniors. I know everybody's been posting on their Snapchats, Instagrams, like, I've been working 12 years, no graduation. Maybe if you have a niece, nephew, daughter, call them up, or like a grandson, granddaughter, call them up and say, hey, I know it's tough, but I want you to know I'm tremendously proud of you. I know I'm going to do that with a lot of my cousins, a lot of my friends. Just make sure that we know that they're loved, because in times like this, the best thing we can do is just love each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Drake. Again, as it was stated by Latika, for members out in our listening audience, if you did not have the opportunity to submit your questions, please, you can email them to the email address of townhall@AnneRundleCountyNAACP.org. Before we sign off for tonight, I would like to call upon Apostle Thomas to close us out in a word of prayer before we end this call. And again, hopefully everyone stays safe. Again, this is a great conversation that still needs to continue. And we're definitely looking forward to building a stronger community in regards to educating our kids.
Apostle Thomas, you're unmuted.
Well, greetings. It was a pleasure listening to all of the conversation that was offered tonight. We thank God for all of our sponsors, our panelists, but we appreciate the conversation. I believe the young man, I think Drake said something that we should all connect with. It's time that we love one another. It's a time that we are concerned about the welfare of one another. I believe this discussion tonight have given all of us hope. So my prayer tonight is that we continue to hold on to that word called hope. Continue to love. Continue to allow your faith. Continue to allow those things that have inspired you in life to keep you thinking like I've been thinking. I'm in my time of recovery. I'm going to make it through this. So as we pray for our leadership through all of these wonderful organizations, leadership that has been provided to our school board, to the college, and to our superintendent, we pray the blessings of God will be upon all of us. And at this time, we will have ears to hear, because we were given great instruction. But now let us be able to move and be able to act on those things which we have spoken, because we want to see every young person in our school system succeed. When I was listening and hearing, we got 85,000 young people in our system, but we don't have a plan and resource for each of them to get a Chromebook. I believe that we can do this thing. We got businesses, we got entrepreneurs, we got people that provides great finance. We can believe that every student will be able to receive a Chromebook, because this is our future. This is what we are headed to and have started now. So thank you, Lord, for allowing us to prepare. And may every heart that is listening continue to stay safe from this COVID-19. We pray for your peace and your grace to be upon us. And we ask these blessings in your name we pray. Amen and amen. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Apostle Thomas. And again, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We look forward to hearing from you soon. And my words would be is to please be safe. This virus is not over. So again, please practice social distancing. Be mindful of your coming and going throughout your day. And we look forward to seeing and hearing from you shortly. Thank you. Good evening.
And thank you everyone for participating this evening, the viewers and the participants. Thank you so much.
Okay.